Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coach Chrysler's Convos. Today, I am joined by my friend, Wynne. How are you, Wynne?
I'm amazing. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So before we get into talking about your health journey, tell everyone who is watching who you are and what you do and where you're from.
Okay. Well, like Chrysler said, my name is Wynne, and I live in South Carolina. I'm married and I have four girls. Um, and I'm a consumer health advocate and a certified functional medicine health coach.
Yes, awesome. So tell me a little bit about what a consumer advocate does.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like I feel like what do I not do? So my goal is to help clients and just my community live a better, healthier, safer life.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what I do is I read labels. I read labels all day long. So I don't just look at the front of a product and determine if it's safe or healthy or food, cleaning products, personal care products, supplements, whatever it is. I'm turning over the back of and looking at the ingredients, doing it
Mhm.
there, and then I also look at like how is the company structured? Is it transparent? Where are they doing their sourcing? That sort of thing. So it can be anything from, like I said, food to personal care products to supplements to household items to mattresses, all of that sort of thing.
Mhm.
A lot of those people just don't know what to look for,
Right.
right? Want to feel better. They want to be healthy, but they don't know. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And
Right.
so my kind of bright light spotlight on areas where I think we can make simple changes. Um, so that's what I do.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that because you're right. There are so many things. I even experienced that as I started making changes with deodorant and soap and laundry detergent and all those things. Little by little, I was making those changes. And it's so helpful to have another set of eyes to just say, hey, have you considered this? Or hey, look at this. This is something that maybe you want to stay away from. So it's so helpful for people out there to know there's someone like you that is able to help them. So I want to turn our attention a little bit to your health journey. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you started down this path of, looking into the products and the different things that go into them. Was this something that was personal for you, or maybe a loved one? How does this all connect to your health journey?
Well, you might have just opened up a can of worms. It very personal. It was very personal. I come from a family of doctors,
Mhm.
very smart, loving, caring people. And I grew up was raised in a way where there was a pill for every ill,
Mm.
and they were at my fingertips. Um, so it's just I felt like anytime there was something wrong, well, you just took a pill for it, right? I mean, that's just what you did because that's
Yeah.
what worked. Those are the people that I trusted, right? Not saying that they weren't trustworthy, it's just what they were taught.
Right.
Um, and so when I was in high school, I wasn't having a normal cycle. And the first, you go to the doctor, you go to the OBGYN, probably way earlier than most, I guess, I don't know, earlier than most people would because my
Mhm.
cycle was odd. And they put me on birth control pill. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's going to make me have a normal cycle. But, you just don't think like, why am I not having like I was made to do this. I was made to
Right.
have made to have babies. I was made to procreate, but I'm just going to fix it with this pill. And I did. And I had no clue all of the repercussions that would come from that.
Right.
You know? No. So fast forward a few years later, and I started when I was, this was 14. Oh, so I get to be about in my, I think it was like 21 or so, still on the pill, having some other kind of issues, a lot of anxiety and stuff, which I know now was probably coming from the pill. But I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I not have a normal cycle? Like, I get off the pill and nothing happens. And so I started doing some research, and I was talking to a nurse practitioner, not an appointment, just a friend. And she was like, you probably have a hormone imbalance. And I was like, a hormone? And she was like, it sounds to me like you might need to be tested for polycystic ovaries. And I'm like, polycystic ovaries? Like, what's that? And she have the characteristics of some of the polycystic ovaries. I wasn't, I didn't have male pattern hair loss or growth. I didn't have the acne. I wasn't middle, bigger in the middle sections. Like, I didn't have those things. And so I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this could, like, what if that's what I have? Whatever that is, it sounds dangerous,
Yeah.
And so I went to my OBGYN and I was like, I want to be tested for this. And he's like, you don't have polycystic ovaries. And I was like, how do you know? Like, test me. I was textbook blood work, right? But not text work in person. And it happened. Here, let's take a pill for this. Like, forget about birth control. Let's take a pill for this.
Right.
And I did it. Well, it wasn't until I got married. I mean, I had come to realize, and I was reading somewhat about polycystic ovaries. It's what sent me in this direction. I understood there was an imbalance in my hormones, but not like that I could actually be a part in my healing. And when my husband and I decided we were going to have children, I knew it was going to be difficult. I mean, if you're not imbalanced, you can't do the things you're meant to be or meant to do. And so I had to go through in vitro.
Gotcha. Wow. So, something that is really standing out to me about your story, and it seems to be a pattern that I hear through all the stories, is that everybody, or most everybody, recognizes that something isn't right, that they may not know what it is, they can't pinpoint it, but their body is talking to them and they're like trying to make the connection. Something isn't right, but the healthcare provider that they're seeing, at least initially, is like, it's in your mind, or it's not that big of a deal, or you don't have that. And I really want to encourage those that are watching that if you are feeling that way, do what Wynne started doing. Do what all the others have started doing, is asking questions and looking into it yourself, and doing the reading, listening to the podcast, going to get second opinions, those types of things. So wow. So you went through this period of time, starting birth control at an early age, and then kind of going through those several years, asking the questions, not feeling right, connecting with your friend who was in the medical profession. And they're like, you really need to pursue this even further. You go to your doctor, as many of the conventionally trained doctors do. They kind of say, okay, well, you probably don't have it, but I'll kind of appease you. And then even into getting married, you're still recognizing something's got to change. Something's not right. So you guys did do in vitro to have your babies, or how did that work out for you?
Well, it was, so at first we were just going to do, because when I went to the reproductive endocrinologist, he said, what are you here for today? And I'm like, I can't get pregnant. Like, it's not, And I said, I have polycystic ovaries. And he said, no, you don't. And I was like, yes, I do. And he was like, you don't have polycystic ovaries. I was like, test me. And he did. And I was texting. So we were actually going to do just IUI, but I elected to have, because I was self-employed. My husband was self-employed. We were paying for everything out of pocket, right? I was like, we've got one shot to do this. Like, we got to do this. And so there's an elective test that I could do. And I think it was called an histosalpingogram or something, like a HSG or something like that, where they actually, which I probably would have thought twice about with what I know now, but they actually inject dye up into your uterus and they watch it flow out of your ovaries, right? So it was just to make sure that the plumbing was all right. Well, the plumbing was all wrong. Not I wasn't born with it all wrong, but what was crazy is that nothing came out of my fallopian tube. So all of that pressure went into my uterus and sat there. And I knew, watching that ultrasound, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not going to happen. At that moment that we had to do in vitro, because there was no way for, egg to get from point A to point B. And so when I asked the doctor, this part just blew my mind. And it really weighed heavily on me, because I was like, why? He was like, well, typically we can go in, we could kind of clear out some of that. They were calling it scar tissue, right? And I'm like, why would I have scar tissue there? So like, I'm asking all these questions, and going back to you saying, like, ask the questions, get the second opinion. You are your own best advocate, right? You yourself, if you have questions, you ask them, right? And I was like, scar tissue from what? I don't have endometriosis. And he was like, well, have you ever had a sexually transmitted disease? And I was like, no, no. And they even had done some tests and I hadn't, I mean, it was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, like, no way. And he said, well, we don't know why. I was always this mystery, right? We don't know scar tissue. Well, it turns out, so I go through in vitro, all the shots, all the transferring of the, retrieving of the eggs, transferring, all the crazy things, 10% chance of getting pregnant. I ended up getting pregnant with twins. Out of 44 eggs that they retrieved, which was really high because of polycystic ovaries, you produce a lot of poor quality eggs. 2 of them made. Well, 3 of them on day 3. They transferred 2, and they were great, and I had them. But when they were 6 months old, guess what? I thought I had a hernia. I was really tired. Everybody was like, "Oh, you're just a new mom. Let's take an antidepressant. Stop nursing. Let's go back on the drugs and let's stop, nursing the babies because, you're just a new mom and all these things." Oh, I was pregnant.
Wow.
No scar tissue went away. That was inflammation from what? All the trash that I'd been feeding myself and the sugar that I'd been eating. Because when I was pregnant, I changed. I started changing everything that I was eating. I started eating organic. I started eating it was my first plunge into the organic and clean world, because I wanted my babies to have the best environment possible. And that's it.
Wow. That is incredible. So, in this, 6-month, maybe just prior period where you're really recognizing something's not right, and you're wanting to give your children the best environment possible, to grow and develop, in so that they start their life, really healthy as well. Things started to change in your body for you to have a healthy environment for your babies, but also afterwards for your body to be ready to have more babies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went with my girlfriend. She came, my friend that's a girl, she was going through in vitro as well. And I went to her appointment with her. We went to the same doctor, and it was when she had an ultrasound for, her in vitro or whatever. And I said to my doctor, I'm like, how did I get pregnant? Like, how, like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't either. But it wasn't until, I just really started paying attention to things. And then you start putting two and two together, right? You're like, I was eating better. I was really happy. I was a mama. It's what I'd wanted to do all my life, Wasn't surrounding myself with all of these chemicals. I was paying attention for what I knew at the time, like to choose better products and better clean products. So just those little changes had a huge impact on my body's ability to reproduce,
Yeah. So
was,
you began supporting that natural ability that was already there, but unfortunately was kind of pushed to the side, if you will, because of the negative things that had been done up until that point.
yeah. And then it was game on. I mean, I was like, all right, what else is there? Like, what else can I do to be healthier? And I also was in the environment that I worked in. I came in contact with a lot of women, and time again, every single person was like, they had something wrong with them, and their children had some illness, and their sister has it was like thyroid cancer, all these sorts of things. So I started getting like, it fired me up, because I was like, every person that I see throughout the day, and it was about anywhere from 4 to 7 people in the day, I was like, there's something wrong with everybody, like massively wrong, and everybody's just medications for it, because that's all we know to do, right? And so the more I started, like, it was just like, why, like looking for answers. And it was like, like a whole new world opened up, like all these doors open up. Not to, a lot of people get really stressed out about, oh my gosh, I got to worry about this. And oh my gosh, I got to worry about that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity to do better. This is an opportunity for me to share what I'm learning with other people. And it just, I've got goosebumps right now. I mean, it lit this fire in me that, gosh, not only do I have to be my own best advocate, but I want to be the best advocate I can for others, even when they don't know they need it. Right. So if I start sharing all this stuff that I'm learning along the way, maybe I'll make a difference. And it just snowballed.
Wow. Well, what a beautiful story of transforming not just yourself, but now transforming the information that you're sharing and having a positive effect on other people's lives as well. Because, you may be sharing things, especially, when we share things through social media, we have no idea really who all is seeing those things, but you may be planting seeds, or somebody else planted the seed and you're watering it and giving it a little sunshine. And more and more people are being exposed to, like you said, the opportunities for change that are out there. So how wonderful is that? So cool. So you said you had 4 children. So we covered the 3. Am I to assume that the 4th also was a natural pregnancy, or how did that happen as well?
She was. So I did still, at that point, I still wasn't, well, actually, I was nursing, let's see, I'm trying to think. So I was nursing the twins when I got pregnant with the 3rd one. And so I was like, I always wanted my children to have like an older and a younger, older, but the 3 were only 13 months apart, the twins, like they were just this pod. And so I was like, I really want to have another baby. Like I want them to have a younger sibling. And so because of insurance, we had like a 3-month window to where our insurance was about to end, and it was my maternity at that time was covered, but we were only going to have, if I got pregnant in X month, then I would be able to deliver under the insurance and not pay out of pocket again. And so again, I'm nervous, but I had 3 months. So I did what I needed to do. I took Clomid to ovulate, because that's the problem with polycystic ovaries, is that you don't necessarily ovulate. So I was like, I'm going to take advantage of this. So very low doses and nervous the third month. The last month that I was, it was like, if we don't get pregnant in the third month, we're done. We got pregnant in the third month.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had, 4 girls.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
And had I known then, like what I know now, like I ovulate all the time. I mean, every month, like clockwork, and I would have known more about the impacts of sugar, because I had majorly decreased my sugar, but still, even when you're paying attention to sugar, it's still everywhere. And I think had I known the impacts of like the ratios of what I was eating, right? I was probably more carb heavy than I was vegetables and protein. I probably would have ovulated on my own, because I do now, just because I'm healthy and it feels.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So how long would you say has it been since you started making that shift? To eating more organic and changing the different things in your lifestyle?
I mean, it didn't happen all at once. Like I said, like the first thing was food, and just foods. I was like, oh, I need organic milk and I need organic meats, and then it transitioned into I don't know why, cheeses and yogurt and like all the dairy, the animal stuff, and then transition into fruits and vegetables, and that happened pretty quickly. The ingredients, like really looking at personal care ingredients, that was probably, well, I got what I thought was safe stuff for my kids, because I started recognizing certain words like parabens and sodium lauryl sulfate and, things like that. So those things were eliminated when they were little, to an extent, just a few things I knew. But I later on ended up having thyroid surgery, and that really prompted me to do a deep dive, because my gut was a little bit of a disaster. I wasn't absorbing the medication, so I was kind of like this, and then we found out I was gluten intolerant, and that just opened up a whole new world of looking at, because I started, instead of looking at, I was taking my compounded medication, I was paying attention to like foods that could help your thyroid, or weren't so great for your thyroid, but I wasn't thinking about ingredients. And I did like a Google search one day, and the first thing that came up, I was like, it all depends on what you say in your search. The results depend on, you got to think outside the box with your question. And something like, what harmful ingredients can affect your affect your thyroid. And the first thing that popped up, I found Dr. Wall's, right?
Oh, right. Yes.
That was the time I'd ever heard of like paleo or keto and functional medicine. And she had posted about sodium lauryl sulfate and triclosan and something else. And they could have massive effects on your thyroid. And I was like, whoa, wait, we got hand sanitizer around here, people. We've got this stuff. It's in our toothpaste.
Right.
And then I got mad. And I'd landed in the Facebook world, and I was like, oh boy, like this is what I'm finding.
Yeah.
Going back to that, it was like amazing. Like, you don't know who sees your post, but when you make a difference and somebody's paying attention to what you're saying, I can't tell you how many people are like, oh my gosh, I saw your post about this. They didn't like it or comment. I saw your post about this. I've changed this. I saw your post about that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. So.
Yeah, I really want to reinforce something you said at the beginning when you were starting to tell about this, is that you didn't make all the changes all at once, and it didn't happen all overnight. And I want to shout that from the rooftops, because, I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with all the things that you can potentially change in your life and in your lifestyle. But this is the really cool thing about, you know, making a tiny habit or starting that with that one small thing. It's like you start that one small thing, you build some consistency, you see a little bit of the success, you learn more, you add something in. It does not have to be everything all at once. And it certainly is not going to happen all at once, right? It's not an overnight change. You change all these things, and the next morning you wake up and, all right, we're done. We feel 100% better. It takes time to do that. Yeah.
It's a journey. It is a journey, and of a lifetime, really, because there's so many things where you can plug in and pay attention to. But if you one place to start and know that it's progress over perfection all day long, and that one small change can have an impact, a lasting impact, and then you get comfortable with that and you start, I find like most people, when they really see or start to understand how all of these things in our environment can affect us, they're kind of hungry for more information, which is really cool. It's almost like you kind of throw that fishing line out, you start getting bites, and before you know it, you're reeling in a big old fish, and it's like, if your cup's full, like if your cup, and I don't mean your cup full in a good way, I mean your cup is full with, all of these things that are like assaults on your body, right? If you just take a little drop out of that cup and another little drop out of that cup, another little drop out of that cup, you're decreasing, right? And over time, that all the toxins and the factors that are having negative impacts, like, they're lessening over time. You feel better, and you start.
And you can start replacing those things with the beneficial things, the things that you love and bring joy and fill your cup in a positive way and make you feel good.
Yeah. And then you just keep going because you can't stop. And then you want other people to know because you care, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody, we were born to feel good. We were born, I heard someone say, and I think you probably heard this too, Chrysler, if you were born healthy, you were meant to be healthy. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We weren't made for all of this stuff that people say. And the majority of people are experiencing a lot of stuff, So.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. So something else I wanted to point out is as well that you were kind of alluding to, and this is very much connected to functional medicine. And what we do as health coaches is there's an investigation of process, right? It's an investigation. Let's look into this. Let's talk about this. Let's see how these things are connected. Let's look into it further. Let's dive deeper into this area that seems to be troubling you, right? It's an investigative process. Again, back to what you said about it's a journey. It's this process that we use to, on a daily basis to improve our lives and the lives of those around us. So something I really I'm really curious about is, how do you think making these positive changes for yourself has benefited you as a mother?
Oh, I have chills again. Well, because my kids, it's the way it's always been for my children. So they naturally have just eaten healthier and had access to healthier products along the way. So when actually, they think about what they're eating. They think about what they put on their bodies, right? They really think, and as much as it can be annoying to them now because they're, my twins are 15 and I've got a 14-year and 11-year-old, and they want all this fragrance and all this Cheetos and all the stuff that the normal kids are eating. They also know how bad it makes them feel. And for me as a mom, like, I don't want my kids to feel bad, but I want them to understand why we make these changes, and they feel it firsthand when they make those choices to have the Gatorade or to have the Cheetos or the, you know, the candy and that sort of stuff. And so we were, a funny story, we were actually, my daughter, my youngest one loves to cook, and she wanted to make fettuccine Alfredo. And so I'm like, okay. And, you know, tons of butter, tons of cheese, tons of what? Cream and chicken and pasta, right? Like just super inflammatory. And you know, I couldn't eat it. I just smelled it. It smelled really good because we put a lot of garlic in it. But they're eating, and there were no vegetables in it. And they were like, you know, first couple bites, I'm like, man, this is good. And then one of my teenagers, she's like, it is good. She goes, but it really needs some vegetables. And I was like, yes, it does. And then they just started feeling just, ugh. They were like, you know, it's so rich, you know, and they were like, can we have some fruit or some vegetables or something? I was like, I've arrived. Like,
Yeah.
they know. And so they worry about, not worry, but they want what's best for their friends. And so I think they actually get to be a bright light for their friends, sharing them with them what they know. And they also want to ask questions. They don't love going to doctors because they're worried about, they're like, I don't want to go to the doctor. And I'm like, listen, if we need to go to the doctor, we go to the doctor, but it doesn't mean that we have to take the pill for the ill, right? I'm going to ask the questions, because we don't have a lot of functional medicine people around here, unfortunately, but I'm going to ask questions, and I want the doctor to think, right? And so it actually, you know, it's neat for them to kind of, they actually understand, you know, they understand why, and they understand a lot of the repercussions of the choices that we make, because they more often than I would like to.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool that, you know, the knowledge and experience that you've gained has been passed on to your kids, and you're teaching them in a way where they're recognizing it for themselves. They don't necessarily always have to come to mom to ask the questions or get the information. Now they're taking on and being a little bit more independent, and will be able to advocate for themselves, you know, here and into the future. So I'm curious to know what you would say is the benefit in how you feel now, and how you mother in terms of your engagement with your children. Like, I know your kids are very active. You've got a runner and a soccer player, and you know, your kids do activities and like to rescue animals and all kinds of things. So, you know, do you feel like the Wynne today is able to maybe enjoy those things more than the Wynne who was not fueling her body, and not really in a place as healthy as you are today?
Oh my gosh, yes, because I feel like because I know that my body has the power to heal. I just have to feed it and nourish it with the things that are healing, right?
Mhm.
And so my kids understand that too. I was going to say, you know, when you see your child pick up a product or food or whatever, and they flip over and they look at the ingredients, like, I mean, it's amazing. But they learned that they may even they know more things than I do when it comes to um, survival. I would say we lived on a farm for 3.5 years, and they raised animal. I mean, they would hatch every sort of bird there was, you know, guineas and turkeys and quail and chickens and ducks and all this sort of stuff. And there was always an animal that was sick, right? We had goats and donkeys, and they raised possum, but like found some possums and bottle fed them, and flying squirrels, and I mean all the things. And they would go and research what sort of plant, like, this is wild. They would Google, I wouldn't even know what they were doing. They were Googling what sort of plant can help with this skin issue, that this turkey's feathers are falling off. And you know, what does this plant, like they would make these concoctions, like, and I'm not talking weird, like smart, you know, coneflower and echinacea and I don't even, stinging nettle and all these things. They go find them on the farm, right? They give them to these animals, and these 9 out of 10 of them would live, and they were sick. I mean, at one point they even made a wheelchair for a turkey. I mean, you know, but I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wouldn't have known how to do that. And it's because of the questions that we ask each other, a lot of questions like, you know, what is this? Why does that work like that? Well, why does this happen to this person? Or why is that person's, you know, having issues with this? So they're really curious and they're information. So a lot of stuff, they just kind of, because they've been raised that way and they didn't really know the difference in how we live versus how, you know, some of their friends lived until they got older. They didn't recognize it, but they're like, whoa, they get it. And like they're going to stand up, which I'm so proud of, as long as they're respectful, you know, because teenagers have a tendency to be a little, you know, but you know, they're their own little advocates, and I love it. I love it. Mom, we gotta tell them they can't spray that stuff in their yard. Do they know that, you know, so and so just had cancer and they live there? What about the dog? You know, we gotta tell them.
Yeah. And I bet it's really cool to be able to engage with them fully in their activities, whether it's, you know, watching your daughter run, or, you know, watching your daughter cook, or, you know, just to be able to be fully present, because you're healthy when not the one who was dependent on the sugar and so forth. So, you know, just the connection and engagement that you have with them, and you're very present, and knowing, you know, what's going on with your kids and watching them grow and being involved in their schooling and all those types of things. You have the energy to do that now and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah. When you don't feel well, you can't be you. You can't be all that you were meant to be. And so there's a difference. If I was still the Wynne that I was then, rhyme, I mean, it would not be the beautiful thing that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so as we come to a close for our conversation today, what's one thing you want to leave the viewers with? If there was one place you would say, you know what, just start here. What might you tell someone?
I think first and foremost is that you matter, right? You matter enough to make the change, to take the time to make the changes. But gosh, one thing, I mean, I guess that would be, I just start with one thing. Like, what is something that you have on your mind that you wish were different, or you think that might be something that might be affecting you in a, you know, in a negative way? Like, just start somewhere. It's, in order to have the habit of running, you got to put the shoes on first. Like, go put the shoe on, then tie it. You don't have to tie it right now. Just get the shoe on. Right. And then the more you do, you put the shoe on, then you tie it, then you start walking. You don't just run a marathon the day you decide to, you know, to run. You become a runner when you decide to run. Right. Just start running, put the shoes on. Right.
Yeah. Great advice. I love simple, practical steps. So that's fantastic. If people want to know more about you, if they want to maybe follow you on social media, where can they find you?
So I am just my name on Facebook, Wynne Sisk, Sisk. And then I also am Green Mission Possible on Instagram.
Yeah, you guys follow her. She always shares such great things. So check Wynne out. And thank you so much, Wynne, for being with me today and sharing all that you did. I can tell you have a great passion for health and serving others in the health sphere. And for everybody else who is watching today, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you do that so you can connect and you don't miss any of the other conversations. And I will see you back here next time. Bye.
Thank you, Chrysler.